So now you're working on your shape. And now if you look at distance on the left-hand side, you'll see where, it's nice and clean in the center, right here. Oh, right in here is nice and clean. And then here, it hasn't been pruned at all. Okay, so your next step is pruning the other side, make it look good. So one thing that I always do is I tell everybody to start in the middle, figure out what your tallest branch is going to be the center, and then you work down to the sides all the way down to where you want the lowest part of the crepe myrtles at, and that way you pretty much get a good feel. And this is really how a crepe myrtle should look when you get done. All right, let's move on from crepe myrtles to azaleas. All right, so my question is, oh no, sorry, I don't have a question yet. You want to prune azaleas right after they bloom to the end of June. Usually 4th of July is a date that people can remember. So if you get the encore azaleas, they bloom 2 or 3 times a year. I would recommend pruning those immediately after they bloom to about 1 month afterwards. Okay, here's a question I'd like for everybody to answer. When is the best time to rejuvenate an overgrown azalea? All right, we're almost there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and publish it. Okay, 46% said just before spring growth, 39% says late summer, and 14% says really don't know. All right, really the appropriate answer would be just before spring growth, and here is the reason why. Whenever a plant produces, whenever an azalea produces a bud, it takes a lot of energy out of the root system, and then whenever that same plant produces a bloom, it uses even more energy. Well, when you rejuvenate that same plant, well, now you're asking that plant to produce foliage after it just ran a marathon. So why not go ahead and rejuvenate the plant in the middle of spring? Rejuvenation means that you're bringing the plant down by 1/2 to 2/3 of the existing size. So go ahead and use that energy to your advantage, so that way it will produce some nice foliage. And remember, good fertilization really goes a long way when you do rejuvenate plant material. All right, roses. In general, you want to prune the roses I usually start my knockout roses usually at the end of January or in February. Hybrid teas, for an example, you want to go ahead and bring them down 18 inches to 24 inches. If you know what you're doing, depending on your rose that you're pruning, you can actually bring them down further than that if you wish. One thing that you want to be careful about is make sure you use this key right here on the far left-hand side of your screen. This is pretty much where the cut should be. the mistake that I see a lot is where someone will actually cut at least a little bit above the above the bud like this, and then or either they'll, in which also this one's in the wrong angle, and then they'll cut in the wrong angle like this, like the one in the center, and then or either they'll just make the nub way too tall. And I bet if they'd cut just a little bit higher, they'd have cut right above a bud. So one thing you always want to make sure is that your cut is always going to be away from the bud itself. Okay, your shrub rows, I would go ahead and remove any of the old wood. Just go ahead and prune it out, and they're kind of difficult to prune anyway. But if you go ahead and pull that old wood out and leave the new wood, then you can reduce the size of your plant, and it will actually turn into a pretty decent shrub again. All right, let's answer this question right here. Knockout roses, do you have to be very careful pruning these?
Hey, that helped, Rick.
Yeah. I forgot what show that was on.
That would be Jeopardy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. 87%. This gets going so fast, I think I'll just wait just a little bit longer.
So do we have to answer in the form of a question?
All right, 89%. I'm going to go ahead and show it. You have to be very careful. So 17% say yes, 82% say no. Let me tell you something about a knockout rose. You can grab a knockout rose and throw it in the middle of 285 and let 100 cars run over it, and then put it back in the ground, and it'll come back out just fine. It may not look the same, but it will definitely come back out without a problem. So no, you don't have to be careful with a knockout rose. All right. Here's a picture of a knockout rose here. When you do prune these things, just make sure that you got a good set of gloves. In this case, a hat would probably work out. And just get in there and get dirty. You want to go ahead and get it pruned and make it look like this. I bring my knockout roses down to about a foot from the ground, depending on how old it is. Now, if the trunks are really, really thick, for example, if they haven't been pruned for a long time, 2 or 3 years, I'd be very careful about cutting them down this short because you're cutting some really big growth. But in this case here, you can see where all my cuts are in an angle. Every one of them's to a bud, and I've cleaned out the center too and cut out a lot of the dead wood, so it looks really nice. All right.
Hey Rick, a comment on the side there. Keith Fielder says that his county prunes them with a weed eater.
Yeah, well, to each his own. I don't know if I do, I don't know if I do that. All right. I do. I see that. Yeah, you could probably mow it too if you wanted to. Not that I'd recommend you doing that. All right, please respond to questions before and submit. So you want to go ahead and answer this? Answer these there?
Yes, if you
Todd?
give everybody just a second to
Okay.
hit all of their answers, and at the bottom there should be a place to submit it.
Okay. How am I doing on time, Todd? I'm sure you're keeping track of me.
You're fine. We're about 8 minutes over on the presentation part, but we've planned for another 10 to 15 minutes, so we're fine.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Todd took a lot of my slides out, or we'd have been here an hour and a half.
That was really hard, Rick. You had a great number of slides. And what we hope to do, guys, is we'll come back and do a couple of more of these if Rick is willing. He had certainly some other topics that we could have covered today.
And really, because I had a short amount of time, it was very difficult to really cover what I, say what I like to say on a lot of those slides. Todd, I don't see anywhere on here that kind of lets everybody know that, or lets me know that they're about finished. Or do I go to time for questions?
Yeah, I just realized that as well. So let's give it another minute, and then you can advance to the next slide.
Okay. I'll let you give me the cue.
All right. Hey, we got a question in the chat box that says, what is the typical hourly charge for pruning?
Well, I would say it depends on your experience, but for an example, our situation, we charge $50 to $65 or $70 an hour per person. If you're doing it by yourself, pruning, I would highly recommend you, pruning. I would highly recommend you charging no less than $60 an hour. All right.
Okay, guys. Looks like it's time to move into your questions. And what we're wanting to do is, if you'll see that the raise hand button down at the bottom of the screen below your name, if you clicked on there, a number will pop up beside your name, and we'll go in order. So let's start out. Looks like someone raised their hand, and they're entered in as guests. So, guest, if you would go ahead and hold the control button, and you can ask Rick your question.
Todd, if they're talking, I'm not hearing them.
Okay. If you're having trouble, the guest put it in the chat box here. How often do you sharpen and clean your pruning tools, and what do you clean them with?
I usually sharpen mine. As much as we use them, I sharpen them about every 3 to 4 weeks, and it's really good to if you have access to a grinder that has a brush on it. If you can take your pruners apart and just clean your blade, clean the bolt that's puts the two together, I would highly recommend you doing that, because it's really nice just to have them really clean. If you don't have that access, then you can sharpen them with just clean them as you can. And WD-40 is okay. I don't really recommend using WD-40, but it does help clean it. 3-in-1 oil works really good. And how I sharpen my pruners is I use a rat tail file, a small one, versus a stone. A lot of people like using whetstones, but it just takes too long for me to put a nice edge on it. A rat tail file, you can go in and actually go in and you actually go in one motion in the direction of the away from the blade. Don't ever go in toward the blade, because that's just not good. So when you go out, sharpen your blade away from the edge, what you're doing is you're actually not only making an edge, but you're also pushing a little bit of the spurs of the metal of the blade on the other side. When that happens, you turn the blade over and put your rat tail file flat up against the blade. not in an angle, flat up. And all you're doing is you're just knocking